everyone, welcome back to alkaline hydroxide 784. Before we start, I have this quote that I modified it a bit because the original one is probably a bit inappropriate. Anyways, so the quote goes, mathematics is my first love and chemistry is my current one. Believe me, the actual one probably sounds more entertaining. And this was just a thing that I came up with back in JC, I guess. I'm not sure how the current situation is, like how I would currently say with regard to those two subjects. But the point is, I like both mathematics and chemistry. Anyways, given that I don't seem to care about romantic stuff unless it's funny, let me talk about something that I can definitely feel excited about: what you study. Yeah, so maintaining a good relationship with your subjects makes it easier to study and also excel in them. And so the frustrated student who hates touching that one subject with the same amount of hate that I have for NAFA test, well, this is the episode for you. Alright, so why? Why is it important to have a good relationship with your subjects? Well, we can say that one, it helps you have a more positive attitude towards studying. So basically, if you have a good relationship with your subjects, you can like studying a bit more. It makes you feel a little bit less depressed, I suppose. I'm not sure how that works because sometimes people might feel depressed because they really hate that one subject but they have to study it. And thirdly, it makes you take failures in your stride and want to work towards doing better rather than just immediately giving up once you fail something. So yeah, in general, it helps you to study better, enjoy school a little bit more, and actually feel like studying when it matters. So great, I really want to be that person who totally likes studying. How do I do it? Well, the main goal is to enjoy what you learn. And I have like three tiers of how you can do it. And after that, I'll move on to the next part of it. Okay, so the first way is, of course, to choose subjects that you like from the get-go. And this can be of higher priority, even more so than something that you just happen to be good at sometimes. So this doesn't apply to primary school, but after primary school, you have many chances to choose subjects that you like in maybe upper secondary and in JC mostly. And in fact, we choose our uni major if we get the required grade, that is, based on what we want to do in the future. So as much as possible, as much as you can do that, please choose the subject that you want to do. Not the one that your parents want to do, not the one that everyone else wants to do, not the one that your best friend wants to do, but rather the subject that you yourself want to do. So now you might ask me, wait, this sounds too idealistic. Sometimes I'm forced to do something I don't want to do because maybe your parents force you, or maybe you don't have the grades to do that particular subject, or something like that. And even if you could, even if you don't have parents forcing you or you have the grades to choose the subject that you're able to choose, there are always some subjects that are compulsory for everyone, like English and mother tongue, social studies. Some of your sec 1 and sec 2 are like same for everyone, GP, PW, etc. And let me say, I obviously would rather do maths than to do GP in any case. But then again, I actually seem to like GP enough to make a whole series about it. Anyways, but for the subject that you don't really like, what is the next best thing that you can do? So this will bring us to the second tier, which is to relate the subject back to your life. Ask yourself, why am I studying this subject? Why does the government ask all of us to do it? Well, this step may very well help you feel more connected to the subject and hate it less. Or maybe it might make you feel even worse because you don't see a purpose in it. But hopefully that's not the case. So, what's one example? Well, I've heard that a lot of people do not like PW. Well, I cannot really relate to them because I had a good group, I had a decent experience, but I have definitely seen a lot of horror stories in Reddit. So I guess what is one way to mitigate that horror story feels and make PW a little bit more bearable? Well, we'll just ask why we're doing it. Well, because the government asked us to do it. But why do they want us to do it? because for some it is definitely a good experience because you get to work with teammates. And of course you might be wondering, well, I've done many group projects, what are you talking about? um yes, that is true, but this is slightly different from your typical group project because sometimes you have to work with people that you're not usually going to choose for your group, and you had to learn how to discuss with them and deal with conflicting opinions or maybe people who don't pull their weight in the group and stuff like that. And apart from working with your group, you also get to learn how to formally write a report for the first time, because if you think about it, all of your other secondary school projects or primary school projects don't really expect you to write an APA that much. Maybe in some schools they will ask you to use APA citations, but I'm pretty sure there's also a lot of schools that don't really care so much about it. And PW is the first time they get to do that properly, and use footnotes and properly like label everything from one to don't know what number of citations that you have. And apart from it, actually write like a full very long report that takes like 50 pages, which is not something that you usually do in your everyday life. And also you get to do some good old critical thinking, because PW is pretty much just you and your group mates thinking up stuff and trying to make do with whatever information that you can find and come to a conclusion from it. And yeah, this is actually useful for university because there are some modules in university like the communications one, and they would require you to write like mini versions of your PW. Kind of, it's almost like that, but it's like smaller scale, but still has the referencing and the citation and writing a proper report from start to end. Yeah, so likewise you can repeat this for any subject. If you have watched the GPO episode on mathematics, you would know what I mean, hopefully. So yeah, that's the second tier. But if you actually end up on the wrong side of the second tier and realize that there's no purpose to it, so what's the third way that you can do it? What's the third tier? Well, that would be to find fun ways to study, or maybe even watch non-curricular information. Hold up right there. Doesn't that just sound like extra work? Well, maybe, but sometimes YouTube videos or intercurricular information, I'm not sure if it's inter or intra, but you get the point. Like information that covers multiple subjects is just a way to get you excited. As told by the quote at the beginning, I like math first and in secondary school and JC I started to like chemistry almost as much. And why was that the case? Well, someone might say, well, maybe you like the colorful reactions and stuff in chemistry. True, who doesn't like that? But we all know chemistry is more than just colorful reactions and stuff. And if you know the exam itself is not colorful at all, it's just a black and white printed piece of bunch of papers in a sense. And so there's more to the story. And in a way, you can't really use colorful reactions to explain maths, can you? So cozy up and listen to my version of first love story. I mean, I say this in a very what how do I say, quotation marks manner, but you get the point. So basically, in primary school, I that was the first time I started to like maths because first of all, it was easy to do because it's very straightforward. You just it was just easy to do. But more than just it being easy to do, I used to go to the library a lot in primary school because maybe I had friends, but I wasn't the most social person. And I still am not exactly the most social person, so you get what I mean. And I preferred just reading books in the library during recess. And a lot of the books that I read were those Cavendish books. If you know what I'm talking about, then great. So a lot of them were about maths, and some of them were about history and science and stuff like that. So in the sense, through that, I got to enjoy maths a lot more because maths has this field where there's stuff like recreational maths. And if we move on to secondary school, I used to borrow like certain maths history books from the library because I like to learn about the history of maths, which is actually quite interesting too. And that makes my interest in math very very big. And apart from that, I could in secondary school I could participate in all those math olympiad and stuff like that, and that makes it even more fun. So as you can see, dabbling in things that aren't exactly part of the curriculum itself helps me to feel more interested in the subject. As for chemistry, well, it probably is a similar vibe, but I think for chemistry, the apart from having maths and chemistry CCAs in JC, I also like to watch this channel which is very chemistry based, and I get to see how different things are made using certain chemical reactions. If you know what I'm talking about, I like to watch channels like Now Red and Nerd Rage. So those channels really made me more interested in chemistry, even though a lot of the stuff there isn't really tested in our syllabus. And yeah, that's basically it. And you can apply the same logic to subjects that you aren't so familiar with or you don't really take much of a liking to. For example, if you know all those crash course series, it's not like I don't actually watch the ones that I take the subjects for. I tend to watch the ones that I'm not familiar with. For example, the economics one, and now there's like a linguistics one and a geography one. And I like to learn more about things that I'm not so familiar with because it'll help me to understand it better and actually like it to some extent. Yeah, so that's for the subjects themselves. But another aspect of this whole relationship is that just like a real relationship where you have to first, have an initial attraction to the other person, as well as having that long term, overcoming of challenges and maintaining your relationship. With your subjects, you can't just say that liking the subject is enough. You would need to be comfortable with studying the subject in the long term. And yeah, I admit that's probably a bad analogy, but you get the point, don't you? So, how do you make studying conducive and a positive experience? Well, first, you have to recognize when you feel like studying and when you don't. If you keep studying at a time where you don't feel like studying, then it will make studying feel unlikable, very stressful, and not very fun. So for me, I think the best time to study happens to be in the late morning after I eat breakfast because I'm super awake at the time and I'm able to do slightly like even things that usually may not like doing as much. If I do it at the time, I'm more likely to do it. And yeah, after some time, my mood to do things usually declines as it becomes afternoon, and then it increases again after like 7 p.m. And at 10 p.m. I become sleepy. So yeah, you should understand how you feel at different times of the day. But the thing is, usually for most of you, that time is already if you're like me and the morning time is the best time. That time is already used up by school, so try to find other times as well. Just don't focus on one single period of time, but maybe multiple different timings that you can use. So the second point is to use positive environmental cues. So for example, if you like to listen to music and that helps to get you going, then do it. Do it for some time when you begin studying. Because sometimes even when I'm doing other things that aren't studying, I tend to like listening to music. It makes me feel more like doing the thing. If I don't listen to music, I feel like very fidgety and I don't focus very well sometimes. But when I'm studying itself, I may not prefer it because it can be a bit distracting. So if you also find the music a bit distracting, you can just do a few real nice songs and then after that just keep it quiet and then continue with your studying. So this will help you give that initial feel good vibes, help you start off in a good note, and then afterwards just continue with that good energy throughout. And apart from music, maybe lighting might help you if sometimes if the light is too dim, you feel like sleeping. So if you on the light, make it more bright and cheery, then you can also feel a bit bright and cheery. Or maybe even the location. I know I like to study at home in a way. I'm very comfortable with doing that. But I know there's many people who like to study at libraries and in their school itself or other locations. So if you have a preferred location, then try your best to go to that location and study. And there may be other factors as well. So do take note of your own considerations and try to make the environment as positive as possible for you, as conducive as possible. So the third point is to use carrots instead of sticks. So if you're trying to make studying fun, then obviously make the end result a prize rather than punish yourself for not doing it. This will make even the days where you're not super productive or you don't meet your targets somewhat bearable, and not make you feel so guilty for not studying or something. Because we know that it is quite natural that we all need some downtime every now and then, and you can't really expect someone to be 100% productive each and every day. And recognizing this is quite important so that you don't end up burning out and you don't end up, hating your studies. Yeah, so on a side note, that's why all work and no play makes anyone have a boring life. Just because you're studying for a national exam or literally anything doesn't mean that you have to give up your pleasures. Instead, do them in moderation or in a smaller frequency. So the last point is to relate what you're studying to real life problems and things, and think about it even after the studying session. Sometimes I get some really interesting conclusions from studying something, and I want to think about it in a different way or a different context. So, for example, I'll sometimes just be talking about my history, stuff that I read in history. I'll just be like telling my dad random stuff and relating it to today's context as well. Like it's like deja vu, because that's just how it is, right? Yeah, the history repeats again or something, and also relating it to maybe GP or to other subjects and seeing how they all come together. So, by making connections between the subjects, you can actually use one information to serve two different purposes. For example, if you have nuclear physics, it's pretty much just chemistry. So, the atom splitting up is both physics and chemistry at the same time. And I guess that's why I actually seem to like GP, even though I don't like studying for GP. And that's why I have a channel where I just talk about all sorts of things because I like to think about different things and I like to talk about it. So, yeah. So, hopefully, these points and also the previous part will help you study for your exams, and hope this will give you a good starting point for this year, and make your studying experience a lot better as you proceed with your resolutions and your study plans for the year. Yeah, so once again, let me reiterate, it's good to have a good relationship with your subjects because that will help you study better and fare better in your school life and make it just a little bit more bearable in a sense. Okay, so if you found this video useful and you would like to see more such videos, please press the like button and subscribe. And with that, stay safe, learn well, and I would like to say thank you and bye.